I have one.
I've read into it quite a bit, but I've never actually like changes. So it's a very interesting experience.
This is his. You want this on, Johnny?
What is that, a wall?
On him?
Oh, no, that's a...
That's up to you.
Those are the things that Greek conference
Yeah.
Oh, what you see right out of the bowl, why don't you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it was I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I
Finish
see
it
that.
off.
I see that.
I'm taking one for the team.
Okay.
Yeah. Subconscious mind is like this, like for the iceberg.
Which one?
Like the iceberg with that, like, there's a lot of stuff that governs us that we don't, we're not even aware of.
So that they're.
Yeah. That's what I
But
learned.
it's not me.
Like your lucidity, like the magnitude of like how much you're able to like
Well,
recall,
you can do it so
like, how where you are, I guess would depend on that quite a bit.
They're,
You know, I'd be able to remember.
they're,
It's
they're
just-
rules to have personal.
So there's something that blocks memory.
Yeah, well, it's like you forget 90% of your brain in the first 10 minutes of you getting conscious of stuff.
That's nice.
Yeah,
Feels good.
I really don't know.
So write it down really quick.
Yeah, I have a dream journal by my
Set it up.
it's when I'm
I like that, actually small.
It's rough.
Yeah, cozy.
I need more cable bumper switches to bring some more of these. But
Mills High School is not a major AP.
I got those really cheap.
It's actually
And your name is?
Isaac.
Hi. Isaac, Virginia.
Nice to meet you.
At rest and in motion,
Sweater?
and or essence. And
Oh,
each
I
separate.
think you're not done yet, I should have known. I'm glad to see you're enjoying so much my, dressing right down to the last little.
You wouldn't be able to steal this away.
Never, never, never. I'm glad to see you enjoying it. I'm glad this video actually. You're welcome.
You should be back at my house for Monday.
Sweet.
You know, I still have to cancel this time. Forgetting up and not falling over.
And tomorrow at 10?
Yeah. You know, and it's a really appreciate it. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I'm 19 about the chairs.
Oh, so I said I'd come at 6. But I said I'd come at 6.
Oh, 6 is way too early.
That's too early.
Yeah, no, I mean like 9.
Miss
Nice.
Isaac,
Isaac.
nice to meet you. How's your time?
Alright, so far.
Good.
Okay. What? Oh, there we go. I'm getting Huh?
I'm getting a little tired.
Okay, 250, 251. We just have one question. Simple one. Why did he write the dialogue? Agree?
Yes.
Because so far, what have you found?
Oh, I haven't been in.
Oh, okay.
That he doesn't stay on the point. He starts out with a model and he doesn't use it. He shifts between classes. He says this, he divides theoretically the angler and then he starts dividing other things, but he doesn't hold to that division. He uses, in his definitions, he uses words from one classification with respect to another.
And what about this section?
Oh, that was the hardest for me to do.
Because
I got a headache every time I got into it.
I need the headache.
Well, the headache was that it, what did I see? It was like he'd talk about saying other, rest, motion. He ended up saying that because other was other, therefore then being is other, therefore if being is other, this is my remembering, therefore there's no non-being, there's not being. But then he gets into saying that being and motion and rest are two parts of being.
Right.
So that's what
So
it's
you end up with
confusion.
being, not being, and there's an area between them where he moves back and forth.
Yep.
Yeah. And that gave you a headache?
Each time, I couldn't, that's all I got from it. I just kept getting a headache reading it. I just.
Not one, just one quote? All we need is one.
All right. But should we conceive of being and the same as,
Excuse me.
oh, sorry, 255,
255, that's good. 255B,
or better yet, 254D.
go ahead.
And further, let's see, the most important surely of the classes or genre are those which we just mentioned, being itself, rest, and motion. Yes, and further, two of them, we say, cannot mingle with each other. Decidedly not. But being can mingle with both of them, for they both are. Of course. Then these prove to be three. To be sure, each of them is then other than the remaining two, but the same as itself.
So let me give you a third. Why did he write the book? Why did he write the dialogue? Agree? It's utterly confusing.
Well, I don't know if it's utterly confusing, but
And
it
you
certainly
can
is
nail it
problematic.
down if you hold fast. Right? But look at this. There's a problem here. Oh, this goes to 260 as well. It's a problem here. Here's the problem.
Beings. Oh, I didn't see that.
It's not plural. Each of these is not separate. And in another way, they're not mixed either. He wants to argue for this. And together, that's real beings. Hey, look. Um, huh. Okay, what is being? Where is it described? What terms are used to describe it? That's, these are the only real questions. And if you don't keep these in mind, you're going to get caught up in the sophist. Now look, symposium. Phaedrus. Republic. Phaedo. Now take these. Is there anything in the symposium that suggests that being is reached? That's what we need.
Yes,
Oh, what?
suddenly, there
Suddenly it's not. Is that a description of
There is-
being?
there is a description of
Well,
being.
that's the swiftness of the experience.
No, there is a description of being.
Okay,
I
did
just
you
don't
remember?
have it. I don't have it. I mean, I don't have it. There is a description.
Okay, someone else?
Maybe somebody else
In
can.
the symposium, like beauty itself, like those kind of.
Oh, right, maybe that's not me. I thought it was.
Would you agree in the symposium, there are a whole list of negatives that are used to describe beauty?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Not being born.
Not like the face or hands,
More?
nor anything like that.
Let's see, for the sake of which all the other hardships are been borne, never being born nor perishing.
Hey, not born, right? Look here, see,
Where are you? Page
Eternal.
25.
In the symposium, geography.
look, I want to know in this description whether same and other rest and motion
No,
are in that description of beauty itself.
I don't remember.
no,
Oh, that's rather curious.
no.
Oh. In the highest vision and the Phaedrus, what is encountered?
Justice.
Justice is one.
Justice.
Well, of course, beauty. staggeringly beautiful encounter of beauty. Looking at the other side, as it were, of reality, right? Say, in the Republic, is there anywhere he talks about being?
The brilliant light of being.
Now, find there's something curious going on here. Because these ideas can be used in this. Now look here. Truth. Right? What does he say? Do you not reflect that there only will you be able to see the beauty with the mind? Right? He calls it truth. He calls it the perfection of beauty. He gives all of these negatives, what you cannot attribute to it. Do you have an idea of what justice is in the Republic?
Yes.
Yes.
No, just so we can use it.
She's got the quote.
Justice, it appears, was something like this. Not, however, in a man's outward practice, but inwardly, truly, he must do his own business in himself. He must not have allowed any part of himself to do the business of other parts, nor the parts in his soul to meddle in many businesses with each other. Didn't say that. But he must have managed his own well, and himself have ruled himself, and set all in order, and become a friend to himself. He must have put all three parts in tune within him, highest and lowest and middle, exactly like the three chief notes of a scale, and any other intervals between that there may be. He must have bound all these together and made himself completely one out of many, well, that's not the Sophist, temperate and concordant, and then only do whatever he does, getting of wealth or care of the body or even matters of state. In all these he must believe and name as just and beautiful dealing, whatever practice preserves this condition and works along with it. And as wisdom, he must name the knowledge which presides over this practice. But as unjust dealing, he must name whatever dissolves it, and as brute ignorance, again, the opinion which presides over such.
What did he conclude? What did he conclude?
Well, I don't know. That is a conclusion. I don't know what you mean by what he did conclude.
Well, it's a figurative conclusion until he gets to the conclusion. It's going to name the just and the beautiful dealing, right? What? Whatever practice preserves the condition and works along with it. What? Yeah. He's going to call justice and beauty whatever practice goes along with it and preserves it. Oh. And then he's going to name as wisdom the knowledge that presides over the practice. What's he going to call wisdom? The knowledge that presides over the practice that allows the continuation of justice. Oh. Oh, well then. Oh. Wisdom is the kind of knowledge that preserves along the practice of justice and beauty. Is that right? Oh, look here. In this experience of divine luminosity, these are different names for the same thing, just different aspects. Look here. In this luminous light of being, if it's ever more than a moment, then one can experience, will experience, a divine luminosity that is dynamic. What does that mean? It's not static. But it doesn't change into anything else. And it has a vast power to it. The person experiences the nature of mind as what is central to themselves. In that sense, they have the sense of it being the same.
The same as what?
What?
The same as what? The same as what?
It hasn't changed. If it hasn't changed, it's the same.
Oh.
But it's constantly changing, since it's always varying itself. Therefore, it's dynamic. You'll never get bored. No matter what happens, you never get bored. Because it's constantly in a dynamic change, where there isn't any change.
Usia.
Usia. It's turning upon itself. It's turning upon itself. So, in the state, you see, you can say that you can, like I'm using this language. I'm using this language. But this language applies to our physical universe. And it has no points of correspondence with this. Because the same thing can't be in rest and motion. Same thing can't be the same in other. It can't have an essence and yet be other than itself. Now, what's justice? If you're experiencing the nature of mind, then by necessity, it is intrinsically as your mind, and it is absolutely proper, perfect, to be as it is. But for it to be perfect, proper, and perfect to be as it is, that's a definition of justice. In the middle of this, it is inconceivable, it is completely inconceivable that anything could be more beautiful than beauty itself. That means it is inconceivable that anything could be more beautiful than beauty itself. So impossible. The symposium says that when you reach this state, you experience the nature of beauty, of truth. Why it has to be truth? Why truth? If you can only say what is true if it is real, and if it's real means it has an inherent integrity, that's truth. In this encounter with this state, just as it's inconceivable that anything could be more beautiful than this becomes the standard for what is, because nothing could conceivably be more real than this. and therefore you've reached the nature of reality. Now, try this now. In order to talk about reality, what is truly real, you need a model. And the sophist uses the angler. There can be no model for this. There's no model for this. This is a myth. The only reason you get this is because he picked on Theotitus. There's no model for this. Now, someone may say that there are steps leading to that, but that's not a model for it. Model means you can lay something out and you can apply it and use it to explain all the features of the object you want. So, anytime you're in this dialogue and you find it puzzling, it's not puzzling. Didn't make any sense. Therefore, every place where you find you're stuck, we can return to it and show you that you assumed something that was true, which was not. Question then, what is he doing in this dialogue? If you're in the game of philosophy and you're talking about real being, the slightest error in your thinking will find you in the Sophist. Every single mistake is in the Sophist. Now, we just, we can take any part of the work. But if you keep this in mind, you're going to see what he's doing doesn't make any sense. Not only that, okay, it's likely that this is true. If there's a sequence of steps in his thinking where the sophist has to gain the agreement from Theotitus, he doesn't. when he does get an agreement, it's about something that is perfectly true, that has nothing to do with the dialogue. So Regina said she found something puzzling. Right? What am I going to say? She got a good part of it. It's sophistry. It's going to give the appearance of making sense. He's going to get away with it because of the person he's talking with. Why? Look here. With such a subject as real being, what do you want to talk to somebody who hasn't the faintest idea of what it is? What we find interesting in the Parmenides is Aristoteles, he's with them. He's with Parmenides. They know one another. And you take a look at that kid, every question he makes is a damn good question. Every question he asks, he's answered perfectly. Every question he asks Theaetetus, he's not going to get an answer. Let's see if that's true. Okay, let's take a break for a few minutes. And you find a good quote, and we'll put it up.
So if you try to study the Sophist, every single error in your thinking will be revealed.
That's what it sounds like. Huh?
Why is everybody quiet? Well, I mean, it sounds like the best thing to do is to read the Sophist with your like capitals.
Can you say that again?
It sounds like the best thing to do is to read sophistry or the Sophist with your like, and then all your flaws in thinking will be upgraded.
That's a good idea.
I mean, what will we do with that? I mean,
A really different way.
yeah. Oh, maybe you get rid of Sophist.
You have a number, Gina? Well, we can look for it.
Well, how about 254?
Okay, everybody. A, B, C, D.
Just above 253E. But you surely, I suppose, will not grant
Hold
the,
it.
oh, sorry,
We're not ready yet.
253E,
Okay.
page 402.
253.
E, page 403.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, 253E.
It's page 28 in the Balboa.
28,
That's right.
Pierre.
It's okay. How did it start?
Page 28. But you surely, I suppose,
Hold it.
he's talking about the philosopher.
great statement. Will you read it?
But you surely, I suppose, will not grant the art of dialectic to any but the man who pursues philosophy in purity and righteousness. How could it be granted to anyone
That's
else?
enough.
Okay.
Is that true?
No.
Huh?
It sounds pretty good.
Come on. Look at the language. If you're going to grant someone to do something,
Oh dear.
are you going to assign it to someone?
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, let me ask you another way. Then the only people in the dialectic will be philosophers who are pure and just.
Well,
Isn't the art of dialectic a purification?
No,
So, isn't he shifting and saying who pursues?
if he already is pure and just, he wouldn't need it.
No. No.
But let's see what happens to the philosopher. Go ahead.
How could it be granted to anyone else? Then it is in some region like this that we shall always, both now and hereafter, discover the philosopher. If we look for him, he also is hard to see clearly, but the difficulty is not the same in his case and that of the sophist. How do they differ? The sophist runs away into the darkness of not being, feeling his way in it by practice, and is hard to discern on account of the darkness of the place. Don't you think so?
It seems likely.
But the philosopher, always devoting himself through reason to the idea of being, is also very difficult to see on account of the brilliant light of the place. He's got to be joking.
Yeah, this is a description of the dialectic, isn't it?
This is the dialect.
Is this a description of the art of dialectic?
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't see that part.
Please.
It's kind of a joke. It's also very difficult to see the account of the brilliant light of the place. It's like this, he sees the philosopher as like a lighthouse.
He's granting the art of dialectic to the philosopher. Should we not discover what it is?
Oh, yeah. Nope,
and what it is he's doing with the art of dialectic?
yep,
Does he?
nope.
No?
He just tells you that the sophist doesn't feel well. So he runs off into darkness.
And it's the brilliant light of the place that's the problem, not of being.
Right.
But apart from that, no, he's gonna go on and cover the dialects, isn't he?
No,
No? Does he announce it?
yeah,
You know what, we need a more clear investigation of this subject, don't we?
yes.
Keep going.
For the eyes of the soul of the multitude are not strong enough to endure the sight of the divine. This also seems no less true than what you said about the sophist. Now we will make,
Now he's gonna talk about this others? That's nice to know. Wasn't he gonna talk about the philosopher?
yes,
And the art of dialectic?
yes,
Did he drop it?
yes.
Well, go ahead.
Now we will make more accurate investigation about the philosopher hereafter, if we still care to do so. But as to the sophist, it is clear that we must not relax our efforts until we have satisfied view of him. He's given up the philosopher. Since therefore we are agreed that some of the classes will mingle with one another and others will not, and some will mingle with few and others with many, and that there is nothing to hinder some from mingling universally with all, let us next proceed with our discussion by investigating not all the forms or ideas, lest we become confused among so many, but some only, selecting them from those that are considered the most important. Let us first consider their several natures. Then, what their powers of mingling with one another is. And so, if we cannot grasp being and not being with perfect clearness,
Say, could you tell me what subject we covered in this subject? In
So-
this paragraph you just drew in?
so far we haven't covered any subject.
Same and other.
Oh, same. We've discovered, we talked about same and other. Oh, okay.
Where do you see same and other?
I don't see same and other.
Do you know anything that's called a genera? Virginia? Biology?
Yeah,
Good. Would you read that and put that in place as you read that paragraph?
since therefore we are agreed that some of the genera will mingle with one another,
Now what?
will mingle,
Commune, mingle.
genera will mingle with one another.
Yes.
They don't mingle,
They don't mingle.
No.
Go ahead.
and others will not,
That's true.
and some will mingle with few, and others with many, they don't do that, and that there is nothing to hinder some from mingling universally with all. There's no such thing.
There's no such thing.
Nope.
Right? I mean, it's just simply no such thing.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Let us next proceed with our discussion by investigating not all the forms, all genera,
So now he's going to go for others. There's nothing to hinder others from sharing. Go ahead.
Let us next proceed with our discussion by investigating not all the genera, lest we become confused among so many, but some only, selecting them from those that are considered the most important. Let us first consider their several natures, then what their power of mingling with one another is. And so if we cannot grasp being and genera and not genera? Is that what, with perfect clearness, we shall at any rate not fall to reason fully about them, so far as the method of our present inquiry permits. Let us in this way see whether it is all, after all, permitted us to say that not being really is, although not being, and yet come off unscathed.
Okay, pick it up from, on the other hand, but let us first consider. Got it? Same sentence you're on.
Let us in this way see whether it is after all permitted us to
It's the
say
nature of,
that not being really is. Is that what you want?
yes, I want you to consider this, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it is after all permitted us to say that not being really is, although not being, and yet come off unscathed.
Both, that, go ahead.
Okay, the most important surely of the classes or genera are those which we just mentioned, being itself, rest, and motion. And further, two of them, wait a minute, then he's saying that surely of the classes or genre are those which we just mentioned, being itself, rest, and motion. So they're separate.
That's right. Now watch what he's gonna do with it. One more step.
And further, two of them, we say, cannot mingle with each other,
Go ahead.
all right? But being can mingle with both of them, for they both are. Well, but if they're genera, they can't mingle. Even being can't mingle. That's step one.
Watch his conclusion.
Then these prove to be three. But they don't mingle, but they
So,
can't
the
be
last
three.
sentence of his paragraph, go ahead.
Each of them is then other than the remaining two, but the same as itself. But how can you say it's other when it's mingling?
Well, I'd appreciate if you just go to the end of that paragraph.
All right, sorry. But what do we mean by these words, the same and other, which we have just used? Are they two new classes different from the other three, but always of necessity mingled with them? And must we conduct our inquiry on the assumption that there are 5 classes, not 3? Or are we unconsciously speaking of one of those 3 when we say the same or other? Well, okay, that's where I got my headache.
That was an insight. Go ahead. Say it again.
I said, that's where I got my headache. I didn't understand that paragraph at all.
Well,
And I read it 3 times. Maybe it should have been more.
I'm in that long paragraph you were in, 254.
E?
Accordingly, then, by making comparisons in this way, let us see if it is permitted for us to say that that which is not, in fact, does exist. Although it is not being, without being at fault, in that case we must do so, says Theodotus. Let me do it again. Accordingly, by making comparisons in this way that he just did, let us see if it is permitted for us to say that that which is not, in fact, does exist, although it is not being, without being at fault. That's his conclusion.
Well, he's already assuming that it's a problem because he wants to get away with it. It's like, isn't that, you wanna seek the truth and not get away from
Let
it?
us accordingly, by making these kinds of comparisons, let's see if it's permitted for us to say. He doesn't demonstrate the necessity for being able to say that. Accordingly, then, by making comparisons in this way that you found confusing, let us see if it is permitted for us to say, what does that mean?
I don't
Let's see
know
if it's permitted for us to see.
if we can say that.
Who's gonna judge?
He's going to allow himself to be permitted to say it without ever demonstrating the need for it. That's all. Look what he does with it. In that case, we must do so. Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, we'll give it to you. Certainly, then, the most important of the genera are those which we just now described, that which is itself and rest and motion. And two of them remain. Say, did he get any basis for arguing that you have to assume it is that which is itself? It includes rest and motion? No.
And rest and motion is the most important, are one among the most important.
Yeah, he's gonna go now and show the absurdity. Go ahead.
I don't see he's shown anything.
But if that which is the same, and they have no difference in meaning, then again, in this way, we shall say in turn that both rest and motion exist. Does it follow, if that which is and the same have no difference in meaning, then in this way both rest and motion exist?
No.
And since they exist, they both are the same. That's impossible. Well, according then, it's impossible for that which is and the same to be one. Quite so. And we'll say, then we shall place the same as the fourth. What? He just rejected it. Oh, now we're going to make the same the fourth. Next to the other three. Then we'll place the fourth, the same as the fourth, next to the other three. Very much so. So we'll call the other the fifth. So just to hold on continue. So he gets the same and other. Notice what happens to it. What then shall we call the other the fifth? Or must we conceive of this and that which is as two different names for one genus? Perhaps. But I suspect that you admit that of the real beings, some are always said to be absolutely themselves by themselves, and others are relative to one another. Would it be important for us to know which ones are absolutely themselves by themselves, and the others in the five relative to one another?
What is this? What is this, Pierre? It's like an exercise in pointing out flaws.
Well, then the other is always relative to another. Oh, other is relative then. So in the realm of ideas, you have relative ideas and ideas themselves by themselves. Is that right?
Some are absolute and others are relative. That's what he said.
Do you see whether
But
you feel
other-
confident that each step you've gone through in this fits?
Nope.
Why not?
There's a bunch of half-baked ideas floating around.
Zaps.
He's a salt.
So I'm going to put it down.
He's a salt shaker.
To go into it really requires sitting down with people with a book in front of us and pound away step by step to make sure we're all together. You guys come to that conclusion.
Yes.
Yep.
What are we gonna do next week?
So what's
How about the Phaedrus? Phaedrus.
Well,
Can we pick up something a little more?
so why did he write this dialogue? Is it just some kind of training ground for pointing out flaws in arguments?
Well, I think that he's giving examples of the best kind of rhetoric or sophistry. And the only way you can escape it is to know what's real. Now, if that adds up to a reason for writing it, I don't know. But there are many people who go through this and they say he has demonstrated these ideas in the way in which he described them. That they can be both in themselves, a set of them, as well as some as relative to one another. Well, from the work we're doing, you cannot separate them themselves by themselves, because they're different aspects of the same thing. So the ideas are not themselves by themselves, nor are they relative to one another.
Yeah.
Or he should have told us which ideas at least are relative and which ones are themselves by themselves. He makes others relative. And then he rejects Sam. So I have no idea why he considered writing it as important as he must have done. The model is not the model. Model's not a model. The angler is not a model of the sophist. The angler is not even a model for an angler.
It's not a model for anything.
It doesn't include any knowledge of fishing. Often those are called important to possess an art. The divisions he makes to get to that point is so spurious.
Could we say that to whatever degree your understanding of being is lacking, to that degree you'll agree with the text?
Do it again, please.
Can we say that to whatever degree you're ignorant of what's being or what's reality, to that degree you'll agree with the text?
I couldn't.
Well, you said that some people actually read this and they agree with what they're reading. They agree that ideas can be both relative and the same as themselves.
They accept these 5 ideas as primary ideas. Yes.
Yeah. So we could, if somebody reads this text and agrees with it, we can say that to the degree that they agree, to that degree their understanding is wrong.
Yes.
Right.
So a good way to test somebody's understanding of being is give him the Sophist and say, what do you think?
Could be. See?
Pierre, could it be that he is actually presenting a sophist? Because in Gorgias and in Meno,
Do it again,
in
please.
Protagoras, and in Protagoras and in Gorgias
Yeah.
and the other sophists, we see Socrates addressing them. Here we see a sophist in essence doing what Protagoras in the beginning, he has all these young people around him, and how he is in fact proceeding with being a sophist. And we don't get that with Socrates and Protagoras, how they relate to, how they are actually training the young.
When Protagoras, in the dialogue of the Protagoras you mentioned, he uses time-honored rhetorical tricks of sophists, especially when he's caught in a particular difficult situation and changes the subject and talks about olive oil, and the values of it and the dangers of it. And it's very nice. It goes on for quite a while.
But Socrates sees
But Gorgias talks about Helen and why Helen should not be condemned. Yet there's both sides.
But you also have Socrates who sees through that too. He doesn't, And here, we actually see Protagoras working with a young man and how he is really using all of the manipulation, all the ways that he can use his rhetoric and changing the subject in order to address or how would I put it, dealing with a youth. It's just,
Okay.
that's
Well,
how, it's
Are you,
interesting.
are you saying in the others you actually see Socrates intervening, where here
I want to
you
see
don't?
whether or not you're raising the question, does the Protagoras use the kinds of reasoning that is in the Sophist?
Well, I think he does, but I think Socrates addresses it.
Second, do you see that Socrates addresses those issues,
Yes.
but Theaetetus does not?
No.
And this leads you to a question, doesn't it?
Well, it leads me to thinking that Plato wanted to show how serious it is, how serious, if you're not a Socrates, where the Sophists can take you.
That didn't.
I know. If you're not a Socrates,
No.
this is what a Sophist can do to you.
That's true.
You don't see that in the Protagoras.
And the problem that we as readers have is, why did Socrates put up with this since he was present?
Yeah, well, I didn't go that far. Maybe he was sleeping, I doubt it. But he also wasn't invited.
It would be rather fun to go into Pythagoras.
Yeah,
Want to do it,
okay,
okay? You want to do the Pythagoras?
okay.
Lysias ought to be good too, that's important. Haven't done the Lysias.
How about the Lysias first? Or second, or whatever, what do you think here?
Well, no, see, the point you're raising is to take a look further at the problem of sophistry. And the Pythagoras is one of the most sophisticated sophists. Okay, we do it. And then we do Lysias.
But maybe we
Okay.
should do the Phaedrus first
Phaedrus?
or
You're
memorize.
not gonna continue the thought you're in.
No, I'm just saying that maybe we need to memorize that if we're gonna get into any of those sophist dialogues. I was trying to answer the question, why did he write the Sophist? That's all.
Well, I just have a sense that if we just pack this up and go into something different, we've left a lot undone. Because, I mean, Socrates or Plato doesn't write anything that's unimportant. And I think there's valid questions, and if there's so much sophistry written by Plato, I think it's important to really understand that role in his writings. I mean, I feel like I've just touched the surface. I mean, I'm still lost in this book, though I can't commit time to it like I want to, but I don't know, I just feel like if we don't go to Lysias, or if we don't go to Protagoras, we're sort of just
Say,
setting it aside,
I
and
will, see.
I think it's important.
Then you're raising a question, okay. do you feel secure with understanding the angular model for the
Not at
sophist?
all, but part of the reason
No,
is
the
because
reason
I've
I
not
made-
had I can't commit the time to it because I'm looking for work.
Pardon me.
So, I mean, I can't.
If I don't mind staying in the sophist. That means that.
No, even if we move on to the Lysis or the Protagoras or something, I can stick in this for a while, but
The point would be that if we come back next week, we should all know the model. Period. The angular model,
regardless of which text you go into,
right?
yeah.
And after we go through it, we can ask the questions of what value did you discover in going through the model.
Mhm.
Care to do it? See, I don't want to take a big section of it like I did. Stay with up to the angler. Everyone master the angler. Is that fair?
Sure.
Yes, yes? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, then let me just do one more thing. One of the central ideas in Plato the idea of art. Books, Republic, clearly the ion. It's the whole, the core of the Republic is art. Does a philosopher have an art? The whole book depends upon that question. It presupposes you know what the idea of an art is. In the Sophist, he does not use this word platonically. He uses the word, but he never describes it and uses it in the proper way. Can an angler have an art?
No.
Because there's no way in which the subject becomes better as a consequence of the application to the subject of a knowledge. Is that true?
So then, would you say philosophy is the only art? Because
That's the whole problem of the Republic. Is philosophy and art. That's it.
The only art.
And what kind of knowledge would it be to bring about that kind of a benefit? Absolutely. So when you're starting off with the angler has an art, you're already stepping into the murky water of rhetoric.
Right, you mentioned before that the fish is not benefited.
Yeah, the fish is not benefited,
No.
even though they go to school.
Right.
So we try it. Okay. But you have to make a judgment next week about what conclusions come to, seeing how he is structuring this model.
Oh,
So you want us to exactly understand the way that the sophist structures his model of the angle. Is that the
Well, see, I'm not sure of your question. I changed it. So restate it.
well?
I was going to take it as what kinds of things need an art, but go ahead.
what kinds of things? What?
Need an art.
I was asking, is the assignment for us to have an accurate understanding of the sophist's model and then to see what it does for us to understand what he's doing?
I don't think you're gonna get
Hmm? What?
it. I don't think you're gonna get it. It's gonna be purgative. It's
There's no unity to it.
well, let's see. I don't think it's possible.
Oh, you don't think it's possible for us to have a clear understanding of his model?
Of the art, of the angler? No. No. It's impossible.
Okay, so we don't do it?
Yeah, let's try something that's more beautiful. I'd rather go into the Phaedrus.
Look, it's an ancient problem in Plato. It's been plaguing around for a long while. The assumption is that if you stay in it long enough, it'll make sense. Good luck.
Hasn't so far, and I've gone through
You've been in it a lot.
3/4.
You've been in it a lot.
So,
Pierre, what were you gonna say, or were you gonna say further on what kinds of things meet in art? You were starting to go into that conversation, or was that the only
Yeah.
statement you were gonna make?
you want to make sure you look at Book 1 of the Republic and the Ion,
Right, my favorite book.
all right? And the assumption of all arts are that they are domesticated animals.
Tamed.
They're domesticated
Lifeless.
animals that can benefit from man's governorship. What are we talking about? The idea of art presupposes
Neat. Man, it's not.
rule. All art presupposes rules. All art presupposes knowledge. All rule presupposes knowledge that can be utilized to benefit a subject.
Just aim it at
No, don't name it.
Don't aim it
It's
at
rude.
yourself.
Big issue.
That's what you're aiming at me.
Big issue. Right? The subject has to volunteer. There are some species of animals that are passive, and therefore they can be herded and they can be brought together into different kinds of herdings. And then you can apply your knowledge to them, but they are not volunteering. So as long as you keep this central idea, the subject has to volunteer, then it's restricted to mankind. Why is mankind a necessary subject? Assumption of knowledge. Man, left to himself, is vulnerable. Which means essentially that he's going to get ill, he's going to be injured, he's going to need support. He's vulnerable.
Therefore, you can, among the vulnerabilities, they can be ranked. Now, that's not immediately apparent. They can be ranked because the subject needs the application of the knowledge, and needs to understand the treatment. The subject must have tried all other remedies and failed. Therefore, he's in need. He recognizes his poverty. He realizes he is in need. He finds someone who has a reputation for helping. But he doesn't know that he knows.
Here's a pin over here. Pam,
Yeah, there's three right here. There's three. I don't wanna
Pam, up here, there's,
He knows they're there, I think.
there's
Yeah, oh,
three right
thank you. Yeah. So, seeks out someone, doesn't know that they know. He is going to look at them and see what we see, only he understands something called symptoms, we don't. So therefore, symptomatic analysis, or he then makes a diagnosis, sets up a treatment, presents that to the subject. They have to see whether or not they will risk. They have to volunteer. They have to give up their freedom. They have to become his servant or slave. He becomes their master. He gives up his freedom. And if he doesn't follow the instructions, the authority can terminate the service. Therefore, he has to understand what is being done to him. Then, he can then agree to enter into a relationship. And that's when he can say, he is my doctor, that is my patient. That's a bond. The patient, therefore, can demand from him time, an estimate of time. What can I expect? He has to fulfill it. He can't do that if he didn't have a knowledge. But he still doesn't have an art unless everything he knows and everything he does serves the needs of the patient. So that if it's ever discovered that he's benefiting as a consequence of entering into this relationship, he will be done away with his title, art. He can still be a knowledgeable person, but he doesn't deserve the title of art. The title of art means, therefore, when every decision you make in this process of treatment and supervising, that everything you do is for the benefit of the subject and not for yourself. Therefore, the physician has to, if he's a physician, has to learn how to make contracts to make a buck. Or he may be rich and not even work for money. So he needs something in addition to his medical art, and that is the skill of making contrasts. Now you can put the kind of knowledge he has in a rank it. Does he have more knowledge of a captain of a ship? Wait a minute. A captain of a ship must be a master. He has to agree to all of the rules of the captain. He has to understand and be able to follow the rules, or he shouldn't be on board the ship. He should be given a time of how long the voyage is. He should be given some kind of a map of where they're going, or share in it. So it fits. So we can have a pilot. We can have that is a captain of a ship. Right? We can have a druggist. We can have a physician. Now we want to go one more step. Among these, can a philosopher have an art? That's the Republic. Now, this language is all Plato. It's all Plato. And he adds to it when he asks whether a priest has an art. And that's what the ion is. If so, then the idea of divination must be a central part of the kind of knowledge necessary. Now, if he goes through this kind of trouble to talk about the idea of art, and he talks about an angle or having an art, it's a metaphor.
Bad one.
And he uses metaphors as if they're literally true.
What's more? So the contracts, he does make contracts, the physician.
Has to,
Yeah, has to.
because all of his skill should be for the patient. Oh.
Right. So in the Sophist, he's not going through this whole, he's using art in a completely
The
different
elements
way.
here are not
Not
in the
in-
model of the angler. And he says a sophist is like an angler because he's angling for youth. He's fishing in streams of gold for youth. It's all rhetoric. It's metaphor. It's taken literally.
Well, we can do that here. We can get into the angler, but is there something better like the Phaedrus? We haven't been into that dialogue in a long time. And that does talk about dialectic.
Well, in the Phaedrus, there is rhetoric. As a rhetorician. And Socrates then has to compete with it.
Yep.
And then gives his own. Well,
That's a better comparison than, I don't know, I'm fighting for the Phaedrus. Other people can decide.
so tell me tomorrow. Drop me a note.
Okay.
Or any other work. It's not, come on, time tomorrow to talk about what kinds of works. And do you want to go into?
I already said.
What would you like to go into?
Well, I'm no, really, maybe maybe the elements of theology. But I would say that if you entertain the notion, you should read the first two chapters and see whether you want to continue with it.
Elements or theology of?
What?
Elements of theology or theology of? If you're reading chapters, that's the theology.
Yeah. Not the elements of theology, the
Oh.
Platonic theology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I should have made that clear. But I think there's some dialogues we haven't done that are interesting.
Like what?
Lysis, we were going to do that, we put it off.
Okay.
It's one of the early works on the dialectic. So think about it, let me know tomorrow. Or, if any of you want to do a couple of Friday nights, let me know.
What does that mean?
If anybody in the Noetic Society would like to come up and do a Friday night, please let me know and I'll let them know.
Did we ever hear from Nabuya though? Wasn't he given an assignment
That's that fellow that
2 years ago, I think, he was supposed to present something to us.
when you see him, ask him.
All right, yeah, I will, yeah,
Good idea.
yeah.
That's right. It'd be fun.
What's the topic?
Girdle.
Oh,
Giving birth.
Oh, well. Take a look tomorrow.
Yeah, it's at David's house.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Thank you, Pierre. I'm
he
glad,
could do
Thank you
girdle
for
on a
coming.
Saturday.
Pardon?
He could do girdle on a Saturday or on another day too.
On a Friday.
Sure.
thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Do you need a ride home, Pierre?
Actually, I do need a ride, but not home.
Oh,
Down to a auto mechanics on 17th Street.
tonight?
Yes, I was going to walk if not.
I.
I'll take you.
We'll take you home. We'll take you. I think we need to take him. Do you have your car here?
The answer to that is if I did bring my car,
It'd be strange to walk away from.
Okay. She's been reading The Sophist too much.
Too
come
much.
on, you remember that Sophist with that.
Maybe that's an argument to get out of it.
You want to take him? Great.
I'll take you. I'll take you. I will take you to the mechanics
It
if
would
you
be
would.
my pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring one out.
And if you need to call, let me know. Sounds good. What mechanic does he have to go to at 11:30 at night?
Philosopher mechanic.
I took it out of the mechanics and put it in the
Yeah.
street,
Oh, I see.
and now I need to pick it
Oh,
up.
you need to pick it up. Well, we'll drive you home. Are you gonna be able to drive? I just wanted to make sure. I know you drive, but I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Nabuya. Thanks, you guys.
Oh, thank you.